Welcome to the MMHP and the 99. Podcasting from the Michigan Rock Legends Hall of Fame in downtown Bay City. Channeling all styles and eras of Michigan music history. From the city by the bay. And now, Dr. J, Sir Fred, Mr. Mike, and your host, Scott Baker.
From all of us here at the MMHP and the 989, we want to send our deepest condolences to the family of Rick Allen Niedzinski. We were blessed to have him stop by the studio after working on this podcast for about 3 years with him. He's the man behind the Michigan Music page that's on Facebook. That's been around way longer than our podcast. You'll hear the name discrepancy right off the bat here in the episode. But Rick was gracious enough to spend an hour with us back July 3rd, 2023 here, and we were lucky to let him tell his story and give us all the rundown on his history from all the radio stations and songs he promoted to the people that he spent a lot of time with. And we hope that we can offer this to you, the listener, as well as his family in the memory of Rick. We were hoping to have him back next year for more, and sadly that won't be happening, but we love you, Rick. Thanks for coming on the show. This is for you.
Nice to see you.
This is fine to meet you.
Yeah, it was a couple years in the making here. We talked in our first summer. Now we're 2.5 years into it. And last summer, for some reason, we were so lost in our own world and didn't hear from you either. So we were like, in the winter, we were like, we didn't talk to Rick over the summer. Okay, well, I'll make a point of putting that in my notes. So.
I rarely carry my phone with me.
Understandably.
And once if I get online, boom, it's when I see everything.
We're back here at the Michigan Rock World Legends Hall of Fame here in Bay City, Michigan, ready for another podcast. We are lucky enough to have known a few DJs ourselves over the years, as well as Michigan music historians, and we've been working on this guy for a couple of years now. For one, we owe him a great debt of gratitude for putting up the Michigan Rock World Legends before we did. And secondly, and that was my bad because I just grabbed that name and ran with it and added a podcast to it. Didn't even know and think about it. I had already been a fan of your page, and we're like, want to call it that? Sounds like good. And then somebody posted to your page.
Our Michigan music history.
Yeah, who is that affiliated? And I got a little tag in it, and I'm like, oh, I forgot about that. But Mr. Rick Allen Niedzinski, how do I pronounce your last name? Niedzinski. Rick Allen Niedzinski. He's been.
That's the real name.
How long have you been doing your page?
Just over 10 years.
Incredible.
We started out with about 200 followers about 11 years ago, and now it's up to 15,000.
Unbelievable. It is the Bible on Facebook and online if you want to look back in the archives. I don't think anybody posts as much as you do. I don't know if you have them pre-planned, pre-dated. There's days where I'll see 5 and 6 in an hour and then a couple at night. I don't know how you do it.
Well, I work about a month in advance.
Oh.
I can tell you who's coming up, but I can't tell you when. People say, "Who are you going to spotlight tomorrow?" I don't know.
Yeah.
I have to look on my sheets.
There is nothing more fuller than the 45 emblems and the little birthdays and everything else that you put in there. It is so compact and knowledgeable on every aspect. I mean, going out of the state. I mean, if you'll take a popular artist, there was one guy in the band that sang one vocal on it. And it's kind of cool.
Our whole thing is if you were born in Michigan, raised here, moved here, lived here, died here, recorded here, if it was written here, if it was, it all boils down to if it was in Michigan. Mm-hmm. You know, like the Platters, for instance. They did one of their last albums with This Ring and Sweet Sweet Love. That was all recorded in Detroit. So and the thing that we try to do is the way radio is today, mainstream radio. They have a tendency to play the same 1,000, 1,500 songs over and over and over. Yeah. But what we do at Michigan Music History is get you to remember the other songs that they never play.
Yes.
and you'd be surprised how many people, boy, I haven't heard that song in a long time.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
That's the blessing for both of our pages,
Yeah.
I think, because with Dr. J and Sir Fred posting every weekend some nugget like you do. I mean, you'll represent it all year long, but they got a weekend where they'll pick one out every weekend, and it's amazing. Like some stuff just takes off that we wouldn't have even thought about, and then it's like gives us an idea to see if anybody else is around from those bands, to put on the show.
Well,
So-
and the ironic thing is we're getting the actual band members who sang these songs, and like Jack Ashford from the Funk Brothers, Pete Rivera from Rare Earth recently,
Yeah.
and he was just in Frankenmuth last week for his birthday. And I've
Scott
talked-
Richardson
Yeah.
writes on your page quite
Oh,
often, too.
Scott's a good friend. Scott is good
I've
people.
seen Scotty Morgan post on your
Oh, yeah.
page.
Scott
Yeah.
Morgan as well, right? A couple of great Michigan bands there, SRC and Rationals.
Yeah.
Well, Rick, why don't we start from the start? You were born in Bay City, right?
Yes.
And
In the South End.
in the South End. And of course, your dad ran Harry's Amusement, which was probably the top music store on the east side of the river, anyway.
Right on-
Lucky's,
right on
I'm going to
32nd
guess.
and Broadway.
Yes, indeed. I know that was a long way from me where I grew up.
Oh, you went to Lucky's.
I went to Lucky's, but my first Elvis Presley records were purchased from Harry's because my dad drove me over there. I'm not sure I could have found it on my bike, but yeah, it was a great shop, and it lasted for a long, long time.
Yeah, he started off in the business doing punch boards and slot machines. And then he went into the pool tables, jukeboxes, the records, and he had all the locations, the bar locations from Bay City up to Alpena.
Right. Well,
And in the
Lucky
home.
Piplinski did the same thing, right?
Yeah.
He was in the jukebox business before he really started his record store. Well, is that where you really got started? Your interest in music was through this store?
Because he kept bringing records home, and I was listening to Barry Como back when I was like 4 or 5 years old. And then when I was old enough, when I was not in school to do summer vacation or days off from school, I would go with my dad. He usually made about 12, 14 stops a day, and I would load the records into the jukebox, put in the title strips. There's a machine that you kind of roll back, which tells you how many times that song was played over since he was last there.
Okay.
And not only that, I'd wash and shine up the jukeboxes. I'd clean up the pool tables and shine down the pinball machines. And there's a trick to making a pool table look like brand new too. There is a trick. It
And
takes
you-
all those little dots out of there.
All right. So,
And one more thing.
okay.
I've never bought a record in my life.
That's beautiful.
I have never bought a record.
You've been supplied.
All right. So, where did you go to school?
I went to St. Stan's until senior year. My senior year is when all the Catholic schools in Bay City merged, so I was the first graduating class of what is now Bay City All Saints.
So, being a guy that had the access to so much music, did you do some DJing at school dances and that type of
Oh
thing?
yes, oh yes. I always remember the last dances. The guys were always on the right-hand side, the girls were always on the left-hand side. So I'm figuring, okay, now what can I play? Let's play "Cherish" by the Association. Boom, everybody comes together. And we spent our summers every summer from Memorial Day to Labor Day at Houghton Lake, a cottage on the lake. So I was at the music box every weekend.
That
But-
was an exciting place, really. I had a lot of
Playing
kids.
records there too, right?
Yeah, that's all they played was records.
Right.
But I remember when I was like 15, 16, I said, I want to be a DJ. So I remember I went over to Dave Hollis at the time when he was over at SAM. I says, I want to go on here. He says, you need a license. License for what? To read the meters. Pardon me? You got to go to Detroit and get a license. Back then you needed. So By the time I got my license, it was time to go up to Houghton Lake for summer vacation. So I walked in at WHGR in Houghton Lake, and that's my first job.
Okay.
In
So you
1967.
you didn't go to broadcasting school then?
No.
You never had to go to Detroit and get that license either, right?
Well, I
You
did.
did
I
get
did
that.
get the license,
I didn't.
but and I started at HGR, and then I came back. Then I came to SAM in 1967,
Okay.
and through the years, up until WKNX in Saginaw sold the radio station to Channel 5, it's been about 40 years.
Were you at WSAM when the Bay City Rollers came to town?
No, I was programming WHNN in Bay City.
Okay.
That was in, what, 76, 70, well,
Well, 77 is when they
Yeah.
they came to Bay City.
and we rented a limo, picked them up Tri-City Airport. You know, these young kids.
Yeah. Well, did you volunteer?
It was hilarious, yeah.
Did you volunteer for the job or?
Yeah.
Okay. So
And-
what can you tell us about that day? They flew into Tri-City.
And they met a crowd at Tri-City Airport. We had the limo all set. We drove them to Bay City Hall. And they were like, wow, they really like us there, don't they?
Yeah,
said,
I guess
oh yes.
They had about
do."
5,000 people to
Uh-huh.
greet them there at City Hall. In fact, we've got that poster where I was telling you about the Bay City Rollers fan club, who generously got with Derek Longmuir to get his key to the city and his proclamation, and he mailed it from, I guess he's still living in Scotland, to Louisville, which was the home of the president of the Bay City Rollers fan club, and she drove it up here to give it to us personally. But one of her friends had a poster from 16 magazine of the Rollers in front of City Hall that she had kept since 1977 and gave that to us, and that's framed up on the wall as well. So,
And the Bay City Rollers got a big kick out of going to a McDonald's drive-through.
Oh,
I said,
fantastic.
really? You don't have these in Scott? No. Okay, we'll do it.
wow, all right.
Which one? Euclid?
No,
Washington?
it was on Center Avenue. I think.
Oh, Essexville.
Okay, there we go.
Oh, Essexville,
All right.
Center Avenue. Went back
So
to
was that after the big festivities at City Hall? Mm-hmm. And then they went over to, what was it, that motel? That was it Terry Dickinson that did murals of the Bay City Rollers, and I think didn't they autograph some of the murals?
I've heard that they did, but I wasn't.
You weren't with them at that time?
At that particular time.
Okay. All right, and then did you transport them out to the,
Back to the airport.
Airport?
No, we had our afternoon guy do that.
okay.
I was done for the day.
But definitely part of sort of an important thing of Bay City history. You know, you think about it, probably the Bay City Rollers and Madonna are the two entertainers that have really benefited Bay City the most as far as publicity-wise. So I'm
Other than
hoping
96
that,
too.
you know, we've got that sculpture park that is going up. Kind of an interesting thing, Rick, that's happened here on the corner of First and Jefferson. One of those old buildings used to be a feed supply building.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
That was my grandfather's.
Really? Wow. Well, Avram Golden has got a big project called the Jefferson Project to renovate that and put up a sculpture park. First sculpture is already up there. But I'm hoping they'll do one that kind of addresses the Bay City Rollers and Madonna. You know,
Yeah.
but the dart is kind of the symbol of the Bay City Rollers and Bay City, and of course Madonna.
Now, one of
the dancer.
the odds that she came down with bacterial infection before she hits Detroit.
Oh, the tour.
And the same
current
night
tour.
Smokey Robinson is performing downtown at the Fox Theater.
Was that going to be the same night?
Yes.
Okay, wow.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
Gives you an
probably going to
option
be
now,
pushed
Mike.
back.
Mike has tickets to Madonna, so he might be able to go see Smokey now.
It hasn't been rescheduled yet, has it? Or
I
we don't even
I
know
haven't
if
heard.
it's
No, they haven't done anything.
I'm on vacation. I've been offline.
Yeah.
I try to, but I sneak a peek at, okay, let's see how the Michigan Music
Well,
History page is.
yeah, the first one was July 15th, so you know that's going to be canceled for sure. So, yeah, it might be rescheduled.
Yeah, this is August 12th, I think.
Yeah, that's what I kind of remember is
Right.
the August one. And we've had some good music come out of this area.
Yeah. Now, you worked down in Detroit as well, didn't you?
Yeah, at CKLW.
Wow, powerhouse station.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
We used to get requests from Daytona Beach, Florida. That's how far it is,
Yeah.
What do they say, 26 states and 6 provinces or whatever?
Really?
Well, that was real important for 96 Steers to get picked up by CKLW. I don't think it would have been number one had that not happened.
Well, WSAM added the song first,
Oh, right.
even though Bob Dell's from TAC's picture is on the album.
Yeah,
But
right.
Question Mark told me, take this with a grain of salt, that Bob Dell actually threw the record away. He threw it in the garbage. He didn't like it.
At first.
But yeah.
Yeah.
But then SAM added it back in, let's see, I just put it on too, maybe June of 1966. And
Yeah.
it finally hit Detroit about two months later. And in, I think it's September or
October 29th.
It hit number one.
Yeah, it took a long time because it was picked up by Cameo. It had already been a big hit, in the Tri-City area, but it had kind of died off, as songs do, back in those days.
Especially on the label it was on.
Well, right.
Once it's picked up by Cameo, bingo, now you got your national exposure.
Exactly.
The same thing happened with Cotton Colony.
Right.
True. And we still got Butcher on here too.
Oh, yeah.
So when did you get a job at CKLW? What year was that?
The fall of 1970 through the fall of 1971, and that's when I got married. So I came back to Bay City and worked a couple of months at WKNX for the first time, and then I went to WFTF in Flint. But all during that time, the management over at CK said we're going to buy a sister station in Ottawa, Ontario, and we want you to be the music director, Jim Jackson, who was another announcer at CK, to be the program director. Bob Lusk was our production manager, and who also mastered many of the songs for Hot Wax and Invictus Records,
Wow.
and one of the newsmen, Steve Maitland. So we all went to Ottawa. It's a spotless city. We had one DJ from Buffalo who came to Ottawa, and he got sick. He said, "This air's too clean. Not even a cigarette butt on the curb." I said, "Oh," but it was a lot of fun.
And how long did you stay in Ottawa then?
From 1972 till 1974.
Okay, you were right in the kind of like the cusp of when rock really took off and became a big business.
Yeah, we did shows in Ottawa. We were I have pictures somewhere of the shows we did in Ottawa with Helen Reddy, and who's very short. Anne Murray, who can beat the daylights out of anybody. She's a big girl, but it was great. And we meet the guys from the 5-man electrical band who did signs. Never met Paul Anka though. Seen his house.
What was the call? What was the station in Ottawa?
CFGO.
CFGO.
Yep.
Okay.
1440 with 50,000 watts.
So it was the 50,000 watt too. Wow, what a powerhouse.
Canadian laws are a little different, except you still have to play your 30% Canadian content.
Right. But there was a lot of pretty strong Canadian musicians and acts around that time too.
But being a music director, you haven't heard the stuff we didn't play. I'm not going to say anymore.
Well, you gotta say something. Come, give it now. You can put it all up there.
Some of those were terrible. And the Canadian pressings. I have a buddy of mine in Detroit, a record collector, who swears by the Canadian pressings of records. He says they're the best. They sound like a tin can. But
Yeah, to each their own, I
to
guess.
each his own. So Rosalie used to mail us the U.S. pressings of them.
Oh, okay.
Which sounded better than all the other radio stations. Boy, it's the same song, but they sound different.
Yeah, well, you worked with a real legend at CKLW and Rosalie Trombley. What can you tell us about Rosalie?
She's a sweetheart. If she liked a song, regardless of whether it was a hit or not, she put it on. For instance, Wildflower by Skylar. That was an album cut. She forced Capitol Records to release it. She forced MCA to release Benny and the Jets. And she told Elton John on the phone, this is what you have to do. This is a hit record. She talked to Randy Bachman how to edit Taking Care of Business to make it a hit record. He did it, boom, million.
Yeah. Well, there's that famous Bob Seger song, Rosalie, about Rosalie Trombley. Kind of a, I don't know. Do you know the story behind that? Why he recorded that?
Yeah, well, he wrote it for her, kind of
as a
just to poke fun a little bit.
Oh, really?
And she caught it.
Okay.
And she still didn't play it. As a matter of fact, not many stations in Michigan actually played that song. But no, Bob and Rosalie were pals, as well as Alice Cooper.
Okay.
Alice she loves.
Okay. So would you say CKLW was important in breaking Alice Cooper with 18?
Yes, and a few other ones. Many million sellers were broken out of CKLW. These Eyes.
Guess who?
Yeah. Of course, BTO. I'm just talking to Canadians here.
Mm-hmm.
Anne Murray. And a lot of others.
What particular albums did you get to spin for the first time that was like, there it is, the first time you heard it?
My first gold record was actually Indiana Wants Me by Ardeen Taylor. When, according to the IRAA, if you're one of the first 5 radio stations in the country to play the record, and it sells 1 million, you get the gold record.
Wow, that's pretty
So
cool.
I have about 30 of them I collected over the years. That, let's see, Daddy, Don't You Walk So Fast, Hold the Line by Toto, Too Much, Too Little, Too Late. I got on those way before CKLW got on them.
That was when you were in Ottawa.
Yeah, no.
No?
I was at WKNX when Too Much, Too Little, Too Late. Johnny Mathis and Denise Williams. I called Rosie. I said, you got to play this. And I said, this is a hit record. I've heard this from you many times. This is a hit record. She jumped on it. Boom, right to number 1.
Well, there we go.
Told the Line. Where were you at?
Hold the Line by Toto.
Hold the Line?
I was at KNX in Saginaw.
And you were one of the first to play that?
Yep.
In Saginaw. I'm breaking the Toto tune.
Let's see.
Gotta like that.
Brother Louie by the Stories. Little Willie by the Sweet. Daddy, Don't You Walk So Fast by Wayne Newton. I had them all on my wall one day, and they're stored. And I actually forget what I.
Well, I imagine. Yeah. Well, that has to be very gratifying, though, to to play a record and then see it be that successful, and know that you played an important part in it.
We broke the record.
Yeah.
Kiss You All Over by Exile. Now, they're coming back.
Kiss You All Over. That's huge.
Yeah.
Still. Yacht Rock.
Yeah. And they were in Bay City years and years ago. They were in Bay City.
Now, is there any stories, and I'll give you, for instance, Jim Bauer came on here and says, man, Dick Wagner and Alice came running to the studio and let me play this song before it even got big. Did you get to do any of that kind of stuff where you got to sneak peek and preview anything?
No, not really. But Dick Wagner used to come to the radio station all the time. Him and Dyer and Fabian and myself and Wagner all in the same studio.
Oh, boy,
Yeah.
yeah.
Try to get a word in edgewise between those three. But, it was hilarious. But back in the day, back in the 60s, when local bands cut a record, and I remember it as people are requesting, you get 100 calls a day for this song, and you're not even playing it yet. And I said, what is this? What are you talking about? And that's the worst thing to do, is bug a radio station to play your song. because 9 out of 10 times they're not going to play it
Yeah, that's
because
right.
they're just tired of hearing about it. But you know, sometimes it works, sometimes it didn't.
Well, you had the chance to work with, I guess, a mid-Michigan legend for quite a few years, and that's Bob Dyer.
Oh, Bob and Dick Fabian.
Yeah, well, I got to meet Bob Dyer through
Mm-hmm.
you, through one of those sessions at Tubby's Bar in Bay
Oh,
City.
he's hilarious.
Yeah.
He's full of stories.
What a good guy.
And Fabian's like Dick Burton. You always have better watch your back. He's going to come up with something. Yeah, and they were good people. Then I worked with Dick when I was at Channel 5 too.
Okay.
So yeah,
How long were you at Channel 5?
about 4 or 5 years. I was their booth announcer. I did all the voiceover.
What years?
Oh, from about 1990 to about 2000,
Oh, so 90. Okay.
somewhere back then.
Okay. I was wondering, Mike and I were
Lane.
talking the other day how we heard, you can remember hearing Traffic's, da-na-na-na-na-na, or it was, there's a couple
Glad,
tunes as
Glad,
their
yeah.
bed.
Sign off.
Yeah, their sign-off
song.
music, and I wondered who was responsible for that back in the 80s.
I wasn't on TV in the 80s, thank goodness. I have a face for radio now. But, you know, they were fun days.
Yeah, is there, I guess it was the same thing we were talking to Jim Bauer. It just seems like when you're in radio, you tend to move every few years. I guess Bob
Well,
Dyer would be a real exception to the rule, staying at KNX for
Yeah.
as long as he did. But most DJs, they move. Is there?
Well, you always want to better yourself. Go to a bigger station, a bigger market, make more money. But that's the part they don't tell you. The more money you make, also relates to how much rent an apartment is. So you're really not making that much more money.
It's just like that WKRP in Cincinnati song that they play all the time, and moving up and down the dial. And,
Yeah,
Oh, that's interesting. How?
Yeah.
but it was fun. And
Where was your favorite of all of it? What was your best memories and your favorite? Looking back at it.
I'd have to say WKNX was probably, I was there the longest.
No.
And it's in the radio station we put on the air. Well, I actually programmed WHNN when they first came on the air.
Really?
Yeah, back
Now,
in
what year
19,
was that when H&N came out?
about 1976. They actually came on the air in 75, but they didn't have any pattern to them.
Yeah, I remember in high school, KISS was supposedly at the radio station. Are you familiar with that?
That was probably long after I left.
Okay. No, this would have been 74, 75.
Well, that was when they played Delta College, so they must have been in there for.
Like,
When
because
they
I got there in
were at
76.
Cass City too. That was the famous.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Cadillac.
Cadillac. I'm
Cadillac,
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, Cadillac, Michigan, where they
That's
at
when
the homecoming.
H&N studios were on Tuscola,
Right.
right next to the railroad.
Yeah, in
track.
fact, we drove by, they were announcing on the radio, KISS is here. We went, and it looks like nothing's going on there. So, I don't know if it was a
Spoof.
spoof
Yeah.
or what.
Yeah.
But they did interview them. They did interview their here in the studio. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
Rick, did you ever have any connection with Jim Atherton at all? Who, he managed quite a few bands back in the 60s.
I've talked to Jim Atherton many times, but that was late in his life. I would say probably within the last 5 years.
Was he, we were trying to get him on the show, and sadly, just as we were setting it up, he unexpectedly passed away. But he had some pretty big plans, and one was to bring back the Lucky 11 label from Flint.
Yeah, well, that was
Did he ever speak?
Otis Ellis's and
Right.
Chuck Slaughter owned that label. Both of them,
And I'm assuming both of them have passed away.
long time.
So yeah, I think Jim was planning to. He had a young country artist that he was hoping to break. He was talking to the first country artist on Lucky 11, but his big thing was somehow he had got control of an auditorium in Flint. It might have been one of the Flint schools that had closed, and they had an auditorium. And
I think it was the school that Donnie Brewer went to.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
But he was going to try to get Grand Funk Railroad together, the original 3 members, and film a concert. And then, he thought that he would be the only one that could get Mark Farner and Don Brewer together, because they're at odds. For
I
a
don't
number
think
of
that's
years.
ever going to happen.
It sounded, well, like I say, he thought he might be the only guy who could do it.
We in the radio, we hear the stories behind the scenes. Sometimes you tell people personally instead of because you don't want any problems.
Off the record.
Right.
Off the record. You don't want
Yes,
any
exactly. So did you get to know Alice Cooper at all when they came back to Michigan?
Yeah. We did a show at Olympia Stadium when I was at CK with Alice, 3 Dog Nights, and I'm trying to remember the third person. Steppenwolf.
Wow, that was quite a lineup.
And the prices were $2, $3, and $4 from there.
Yes,
That's the shocker.
Those were the days, yes.
But they were. That's when music was fun. And to be honest with you, I don't even listen to the radio anymore. When I moved down to Charlotte, North Carolina 6 years ago, I'm scanning the dial in the car, and I found an oldies FM radio station. And not only do they play what everybody else plays, they play stuff I've never heard of.
Oh,
Because I'm slowly getting used to what they call the beach music that they play down in the Carolinas. I said, oh, okay, I know the chairman of the board, I know the times, and this is all new stuff to me, and I'm loving it.
Good. Something to challenge your ears.
Yeah. So that's the only station I listen to.
When you went to WHNN, was this when they were into the oldies format?
No, they were playing a mixture
New
of
stuff.
pop music and albums.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you stayed with that general format?
Mm-hmm.
How did you,
We did good.
they became very successful, so what
think
was your formula?
I think the highest share we had was a 25 share, so we had a quarter of the entire audience in Saginaw Bay City. It's hard to describe the formula. It's ear,
Okay.
and it's the announcers like this.
All right,
you
you
know,
just
it
hear
was-
something and you kind of know that this,
Yeah, it was. It had pieces of CKLW in it. It had parts of WKNX and WSAM, in it. So it had a lot of different parts, and they all blended together.
yeah, well, all your experiences
Mm-hmm.
from those stations, yeah, certainly. Well, it sounds like they picked the right guy.
Yeah, well, we had fun.
Any good stories of Bob Dyer?
Bob would tell you a story, the same story. It's almost like it was embedded in his mind, and the script is always the same, and it's hilarious. He was just a great guy.
Well, he and Dick Fabian were kind of right on the cusp of, the big teen
That's
teen club scene with what they did at Rollaire with the Battle of the Bands, and then renting the Y for Why a Go Go. I mean, geez.
and Bob also did the Sea Wing Sportsman's Club. Yeah, those days are gone. I drive down River Road, and I said, "Oh, there's the old band Canyon.
Yeah.
What's left of it?" And there was the old Sound Lounge. Remember that
Right,
one?
exactly.
You can't even see that place
No,
anymore.
that's
Okay, where exactly is that? I've been looking for it.
The Sound Lounge. Let's see. If you're getting closer to almost in the middle of Bay City and
Right.
Saginaw,
Zilwaukee
right.
Bridge.
yeah.
It's on the left-hand side as you're going towards Saginaw.
Right.
Is
Is it by the motel?
It's
Or by a motel?
closer to Bay City.
Okay.
Yeah, there used to be like a bait shop there. That wasn't there very long. It was on the left-hand side. It was like a wooden structure. But the Sound Lounge is on a hill. You can still barely see the
I think
roof.
I know.
You know,
So
'Cause that used to be the Parkway Inn before it was the Sound Lounge. It was a roller ring called the Parkway Inn. And before that, I mean, Count Basie played there, all the
Wow.
B.B. King played there, all the,
Count Basie and Glenn Miller played on Broadway, on 32nd and Broadway. And that building, which I'm surprised is still standing, that has been bulldozed yet. The bricks are falling off the place.
Is that the,
Right across right on the same side of the street, my dad's store.
On the west side,
Yeah.
yeah, right there, the big tall building.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I often wondered what went on there.
well, for a while, it was some sort of a lodge. They turned it into
What is it, the Oddfellows?
yeah, I
Maybe.
can't remember. It might have been the Oddfellows.
is that bank building?
Well, I don't know that it was a
Because they just
bank.
had a thing about the big robbery and that
That's
happened
just
there a
past
long
that.
time
This
ago.
was this is still on 32nd and Broadway.
Okay.
Yeah, the building's there. You know, I'm trying to think what year it would have been, 1976. I toured it because the organization I was working for, Tri-City Share, was looking for a Bay City location. And that building was in great shape in 1976, but I don't think anything was ever done. You know, just like a building, you know, when
just-
nobody's in it,
it
it
just
just
fell
starts
apart.
deteriorating.
The
right?
floors are falling in, the bricks are falling off.
Yeah.
Who did you say played Count Basie and who?
Glenn Miller,
Glenn Miller? Yeah.
all the big band people played
Big
there,
band.
according to my dad.
Yeah, well, he would know.
Yeah.
Certainly. Did your dad, did he have much interaction with Winona Beach out there? And
We had the machines out there at Tony's Park,
Okay,
right, which is right across the street from Roll Air.
right?
Yeah, it was fun. You know, the juke. He always cracked up. He said the jukebox always sounded great until that train came by. And that train, you remember, used to
course.
fly through there.
I remember riding that. That was real fun when I was a
Oh,
kid.
the old Detroit Mackinac.
Well, I thought you were talking about the little train at Tony's Park.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one too.
Okay.
Was that your mother who worked in the store?
No,
Oh, okay.
no,
Because the last time I went in there was
Well, there were two.
an older woman, and
Yeah, that-
she wouldn't help at all.
No, well,
She wouldn't come down on them prices for you, Freddie.
Exactly.
But she'd sell you a pool cue.
I remember 69 cents for 45, and I think the albums were $2.99 if I remember right when I first started selling them.
And your dad, I know my friend Wayne Prisbilski, bought a lot of records that were taken out of the jukebox.
Yeah.
And I think he said your dad was selling for like 10 cents a piece
Yeah.
or something like that. He bought a whole bunch of records.
Well, they played fine, you know.
Yeah.
The problem is when you pull them off the jukebox, you get the smoke from the bar in the jukebox. So there's a little white. The vinyl looks a little white.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with
Wow.
it. You know.
So when you go 45 shop and you find some a little white on them, you know they've run in jukebox. Interesting.
Was there a certain number of plays? You said, you know, they
It was
recorded.
like a meter every.
Yeah, was there like a certain amount of plays where you would replace the 45? You know, if it had played 50 times or whatever.
Yes, except for, you know, what the bar owner wanted, you know, on the jukebox. He wanted a certain record on it.
Oh, what I meant was you would put a new copy of that record on if it had been played, or
No, it would stay there unless it started skipping.
oh, okay.
You know, which some records did, but you know.
Well, those 45s they're pretty durable.
You might not have known either how long they were in there because you got to make your rounds, right? And when you come back to make your round,
Yeah.
you weren't, unless you were called by the particular place, you probably would have not known how many times something was played until you got there.
My dad went to Detroit, every other Tuesday to buy records for the jukeboxes. So he would buy like 200-300
Where at?
copies at a time. Oh, in Detroit, he went to Angot. He went to Martin and Snyder. He went to Capitol Records. He went to RCA.
They were all had a base in Detroit?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah,
I did not know that.
So you said Martin and Snyder. Was that like?
Martin and Snyder's in Dearborn.
And
That's where.
they're like a middleman, or
Yeah, they sell more to the jukebox operators.
Okay.
But they did have two labels that they recorded. One was the actual Dearborn records, which a lot of the polka bands recorded for. And then they had a label called MS, which, let's see, we had Stop by Lynette, now she's Lynette McKee, which Dennis Coffey played on, Mike Theodore. They had a few records though. But over the years, they destroyed all their masters. There's nowhere to be found, unless you're lucky enough to have them.
Why would they destroy their masters?
That was not their primary
Oh, boy.
business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think those would be pretty valuable right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they are.
I was just hearing about a place, they got rid of all their reel-to-reels because they have no space to store them. They're heavy, took up a ton of space, and they were just, in the late 70s, everybody was just kind of throwing them in the dustbin or giving them to whoever wanted them. And it went.
Yeah.
Did we hear that with our podcast the other day, too, from Bob? He was talking about that. Somebody, or maybe it was somewhere else I was. But anyway, it's amazing to hear all the stuff that just went by the wayside, and it's so unfortunate because all these years later,
Even the reel-to-reel tapes over the years, they just fall apart. Unless you keep them in a cool spot, then they're fine. But technology.
Yes, indeed. Everything's digital now.
So is there any labels in Detroit that your dad went to that was off the beaten path? Any good stories?
Not really, but the distributors, the jukebox distributors, they would feature like 15 different, like Columbia, Epic, Date. Well, they would all come from the same company.
Okay.
Did he ever have any contact with the Browns, Jack and Devorah Brown and Fortune Records, which is now kind of like a,
It's
very
an
highly thought of.
institution by itself.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, it is.
I doubt. I can't say for sure, but I doubt it. Because Fortune stuck around Joe in the mid-'60s,
Yeah, I think so.
but they were probably distributed by somebody else.
His son tried
yeah.
to sell it to us as school kids,
Oh, really?
and he wanted, this was back in the 90s, he wanted like over $1 million.
Ooh.
I mean, it sounds okay now,
Yeah.
but at the time,
Well, you had no
We
way
didn't-
of knowing, how much interest
Right.
people have now in Fortune Records. In the 90s, it probably didn't seem
who
real
knew a
likely.
book was going to come
Yeah,
out?
well, exactly.
They put out a lot of records.
Yeah, they did.
They did.
A lot of them.
Yeah, really, a lot of
They're all
incredible
very
stuff.
collectible.
Yes.
Who was your Capital guy?
Promotion man?
Yeah, I'm
Tom
trying to-
Gilardi.
I knew it.
And Tom's still
Loved
around.
him. Yeah, he is.
Great guy. One of the,
He used to
one
be
of the
ours
best,
at
one
School
of the best
Kids
promotions.
Records. Yeah.
Yeah.
He told me stories about the Beatles and all that.
Yeah, he used
Really
to
interesting.
holler at Bob Dyer for getting a tape of an early Beatles song. He said, no. You better not play. That goes on Detroit radio first. He said, too late.
Wow.
Yeah,
Tom
KNX was really the station that picked up on the Beatles really early.
Well,
And-
back in the 60s, KNX was more of a, the British invasion. SAM was more mainstream, the Motown, everything else. So,
I think Bob Dyer had a friend over in England. I think it was in Bo White's book.
Okay, because he
That-
played some songs that weren't on the Beatles albums, and so that's like in England, the Beatles put out an album that had 14 songs on it.
Yeah.
In the United States, it might be 10 or 11, and so there were those extra songs that sometimes they would come out a year later on some other collection, but yeah, KNX would play those songs. It was pretty fun to hear them.
So tell us some of your favorite interviews you've done over the years. The ones that lasted in your memory of boy that I sure enjoyed.
we interviewed Sam the Sham. I don't know why that just popped into my mind.
Is that when he was in Bay City performing at not Daniel's?
No, I think he was.
Van Canyon.
I think he was at Chesaning.
Okay.
Not that many years ago, probably back in the 80s, and he was doing a benefit show.
Okay, playing the oldies, playing his hits. Yeah. So what about Sam the Sham stood out in your mind?
Down to earth guy,
Okay.
I said, where's the outfit? Yeah, I remember seeing the Wooly Bully album.
Yeah, he didn't have the,
No,
the
no.
turban on.
No, he was loving it. I usually let the other guys on the air do the interview.
Oh, did
to
you?
be honest
Okay.
with you. Yeah.
Okay.
Did you have any that were kind of rough? Any good stories, any dirt that you like to tell us about? Some funny ones?
Well, there was a recording artist for Capitol Records who I threw out of my office. He's
Bob Seger?
No. You'd recognize the name if I said it, but I don't want to get into any trouble.
He's still alive?
But, oh yeah, and he's still recording. He just thought he was hot stuff. He said, "You're going to play that." I said, "If it's good enough, I'll play it." He says, "You're going to play it." I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "See you later." There's the door. Don't let it hit you on the way out. I just had enough of that guy.
I assume we're not going to see anything on your page with that artist. Or has there been?
Probably not.
So we have to really comb those archives, figure this
I'll
out.
put it this way: he was, and I believe he's still on Capitol Records too. So you'd recognize the name.
Not
of the artist.
M-C-A-R-T McCartney?
Nope.
No.
He's a hard rocker.
Okay.
But
Wonderful. We'll have to save that one for when the mics are off. Ted Nugent. I don't know if he was on Capitol.
No, he wasn't on Capitol.
This is great.
he's a more 80s, 90s guy.
Okay. When the Eagles started, when a lot of the Eagles picked up. And
Eagles started in 70.
Eagle. Is the Eagles. Not Eagle.
No, wait a minute. Now, I just had an argument with this on the Michigan music page.
Oh,
Glenn Fry calls them Eagles.
oh,
Don Henley says we are the Eagles.
oh.
No.
And there are records press that says the Eagles. So case closed on that.
Yeah. Well, I meant
It's-
ego, person's
Oh,
ego.
Eagle. Okay.
Yeah.
Jeez. Sorry, I'm old. My mind is going.
But that's all great. I actually followed your thread on that one.
Yeah.
I love that Glenn Fry thing. And actually, Glenn Fry had a song you had up for voting this year, too.
The mushrooms?
Oh no, this was
For
for
us?
legendary Michigan song. "You Belong to the City."
Great
Oh,
song.
That song,
Love that song.
yeah, from Miami Vice.
Yeah, love that
it was
song.
a great song.
Ego problems with
With the guy that was from Capitol Records. I mean, you said
that was his main problem.
80s and 90s.
That was his main problem.
You remember how everybody had that ego in 80s and 90s?
Yeah, Scott is, he's working to try to get that name right.
Well, let's just say his initials are BS, and I'll leave it at that.
And it's not Bob Seger.
No, it's not Bob Seger, no.
Oh, so
But,
that's
the problems we're facing now is that, at least on the Michigan music history page, is that if I'll post a Ted Nugent song, or very seldom a Kid Rock song. But people have a hard time separating, the musician from the mouth.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, it is.
And and people
Yeah.
and the people in the music business leave politics alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's because you're either gaining some people or you're losing a lot of them.
This polarized world we've been living in, really, I mean, it's been bad on any kind of social media since the day of social media started. But I mean, in the last 10 years, it's like you go one way or the other on it, and then you're
Well-
looking for comment after comment that you don't need to read.
Yeah, well, that's
being-
social media too. I think that fans the flames.
Being a co-administrator of Michigan music history, I have the option of shutting off the comment.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful.
I'll just post a song.
Yeah, I'll do
And
the
there's
same
no way
thing.
you're going to
Yeah.
badmouth or
Well, yeah, that's my whole thing is, we're here to celebrate Michigan music, and derogatory comments are
and,
not welcome.
and Nugent, Kid Rock, they're legitimate hit records.
Oh, of course.
Love them or hate them, those were hit, but they
Yeah,
sold millions.
they've got Nugent's got Cat Scratch Fever, and then two of the great Amboy Dukes singles, "Journey to the Center of Your Mind" and
Baby, please don't
"Baby
go.
Please Don't Go" are both
Those
also
namesake, yeah.
legendary Michigan songs, and he's in the Hall of Fame twice as a solo artist as well as a
and he
member
did-
of the Amboy Dukes.
Then he did the hunting.
Oh, Fred Barrett was
Yeah.
a great song. Yes, indeed.
It was amazing to see him probably about 7, 8 years ago reunite with the Amboy Dukes for the Detroit Rock Music Awards. That was fantastic. I mean, just to see he did it, and he did press for it and everything. And said, "No, I love these guys. They're my brothers. Bring them in. Let's rehearse." And he had fun with it. And he didn't read a whole lot of crap during that period, but it was
Yeah,
it was so
I wonder
grateful
how
to see.
many of the original members are still alive. Was Steve Farmer
Yeah,
still alive?
Steve was alive
Because
at
he
the time,
was really
yeah.
important, writing the songs with Nugent. Yeah, so that's great. Yeah, the Amboy Dukes were a powerhouse band.
I saw an old video on YouTube the other day.
Of Journey to the Center of Your Mind.
Well, they did it, but it was a concert of them with other groups.
Oh,
Was this that
more-
Pennsylvania thing? I've been
I
watching
don't
that
know.
too.
It was black and white,
Oh,
and it was really good. I forgot how good they were.
I saw just recently, and it came up within the last year as a collection of songs or shows from this thing in Pennsylvania, and it was a broadcasting station. They were on it. Graham Funk was on it, and all these it rolls from one of their mountains on it, and it was awesome. Amboy Duke sounded great. In there.
This was on YouTube?
Yeah.
It just came into my feed like,
Yeah,
okay,
me
this
too.
is great.
Yeah.
So I'm on part
Look
4
into
right now.
that. Yeah, for sure.
A lot of singer-songwriter guys and some people I never heard of, but it's cool.
Yeah, it's too bad that. Did you have any contact or much contact with Robin Seymour? He had those great, Swinging Time.
I ran into him a few times. His last days at CKLW, Channel 9.
Yeah, that was probably, you were in Detroit maybe toward the end of it. Yeah,
career.
yeah, because, boy, he had everybody and their brother on that show.
Mm-hmm.
And if those tapes were still around, that would be
Well,
extremely
they didn't
valuable.
save them. They saved some of them, but not all
Yeah,
of them.
not all.
Do you have any ear checks of yours?
Yes.
Have you put them out for us to hear on YouTube?
No.
No? Are you going to?
No.
Give us a little taste of what it used to be?
My days of radio are done.
That's cool, though, that you got some. That's great to hear. Because
Well,
ear checks are a cool
the
thing.
voice in 1967 sounded a lot different than it did in 2007.
Well, that's all of us there.
But I remember trying to get into radio. I says, because I remember calling, I don't know which station or what DJ it was. I wanted to hear a song from my girlfriend at the time. He says, "Okay, I'll see what I can do." Never played it. Never played it. I called him 2 hours later. "What happened to my song?" "Sorry, I'm off the air." I said, "When I'm on the radio, you're going to air your song." And they did.
Wow.
Made people happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's
Taking
fantastic.
requests.
Yeah. That phone would ring nonstop.
Yeah, and that's something that's gone now. Is there anybody that takes requests anymore? That style of radio is
They
just,
do Bad X channel, the
Oh, do they?
102.1, yeah, because
Okay.
it's more of an independent.
all right, it's
Weekends.
well, was the DJ, the personality of the DJ was an important component.
Mm-hmm.
And that,
Definitely.
that's gone. There's so many channels that they'll play a song, don't even announce who it is.
Oh, that's that's the hard part. That's the
Oh,
one that
man.
gets me.
Have to get Shazam on there,
Just so
to
you can read
identify
it.
the song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at SAM, did you know Uncle Don Andrews? And I'm sure you did.
But not from there. Not from
not
SAM.
Kent Clark.
I worked with when I was at SAM. That's when all of us were named Sammy.
Oh yeah.
We had
I
Sammy
remember
Allen,
that.
Sammy Mills, Sammy Major, Gary Major.
Yeah.
Everybody was named Sammy.
Yeah.
Did you ever have anybody come through and get you some tickets to the show, and you said, "Man, that was a lot different than I expected it to be," and you enjoyed it, or vice versa?
Oh yeah, most of the people enjoy the shows. We got the best comments on the Commodores, on the Spinners. There was a show at the Saginaw Civic Center which had the association, Tommy James, the Four Tops. People loved it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I keep telling people now. I says, if your favorite artist is coming to your you better go see them, because we're losing them left and right.
Well, that's true.
Way too fast. And now I'm in that category.
Yes.
Okay, just push them under the rug. But and another thing that, to be honest with you, that gets to me is how people view the term rock and roll. You'd be surprised how many people think rock and roll is only metal. Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
So you're in agreement with the Cleveland Hall of Fame, whereas it's a little bit of rap, a little bit of
Well,
everything.
yeah, the Cleveland Hall of Fame has changed over the years. But, yeah, rock and roll that's nominal. Elvis, Bill Haley, that's rock and roll.
Yeah. Take it back to the start.
Some people say Neil
Chuck Berry.
Sedaka, that's rock and roll.
It is.
That
It
was
certainly
considered
was
rock.
back then, yeah.
Elvis.
Well, even
Now-
Pat Boone was considered rock and roll back there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you happen to see the PBS special on Little Richard? They had Pat Boone on there. It was just on the. They have that series called American Masters, and their
No, I
documentaries.
didn't see that
Look
one.
for that.
But
That's pretty interesting.
There are some Pat Boone records that I love, and some I can't stand.
Well, you know, he was a great ballad singer,
Yeah.
but when he tried to,
He was
you know,
like Ricky Nelson when he first started. Just ain't that a shame? Come, put some life into it.
Yeah, those when he was trying to cover Little Richard and Fats Domino, that was pretty weak.
Yeah, but he had some great songs.
Yeah, he did. You know, but again, his best songs were the ballads. You know,
And I remember when you ran your oldies shows. Okay, what's the lyric from Moody River that nobody knew, huh?
That's right.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yes, indeed.
And because they were through it, the teams at one team tried to get me on their team all the time.
Well, of course.
But I was doing the morning show, okay? And I said, I can't stay up till midnight and turn around 2 hours later and go to work.
When did you retire?
2007.
2007.
Well, I didn't retire. They sold WKNX to Channel 5. And now I have no idea where they are now.
Yeah, that was too bad because, you know, KNX was a pretty interesting channel when you were working there in those days.
But, those days are gone. It
Yeah.
was fun. Now, usually the only live person you have on is the morning guy.
Well,
the rest
and-
is automation.
And I think also it was probably one of the last AM stations to feature music. I mean, it seems like AM now is all talk,
And
religious programming, news, sports talk.
and
that's it,
and
you know.
Now even the automakers want to eliminate AM radio from the cars, but
Yeah.
Ford changed their mind.
I just
They-
heard the ad on the radio the other day for that. I was in the morning, flip on the radio before I get a shower, and it says there's an ad on there that says "Save AM Radio." Congress wants to get rid of it, and you need AM radio. It was just on Friday.
What they need
Friday.
AM radio is music on AM radio that, you know, bring back the old days, the glory days of AM radio.
In the big,
You know, listening to somebody's political views.
big area.
I'm not sure how much you need that.
You could get a lot of area with AM too. I mean, wattage.
Oh yeah, because AM radio goes up the tower and comes out like a mushroom.
Right.
Where the FM signal goes in a straight line and stops.
Yeah, FM, you only have limited range from that.
But there are some good FM stations around.
That's awesome. So, and about 10 years ago, we started the show talking about it. You put the Michigan Music History page up on Facebook. And,
Well, Mike Jackson actually started.
Mike Jackson started? Okay.
And I just started. I noticed the site, and I said, well, let's put the stuff on people may have forgotten about.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the music.
Yeah.
Well,
And then-
plus the history, that you
and-
bring in there too. You know, it's important.
Yeah. Did you jump
that
in
alive.
right when it started, or was it just after?
About a couple months after it started.
So you guys together have tag teamed that into what it's become.
He pretty much left it. I'm pretty
It's pretty much Rick
We're doing
now.
all the work now.
Yeah.
But I like it.
Well, sure, if it's fun and you're certainly it's right in your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Well, it's like Tommy James. What songs do you hear on the radio anymore? Mony Mony, Crystal Blue Persuasion, Hanky Panky.
Yeah.
You don't hear all of them.
No radio. It seems like.
But he
they
had
grab-
probably 25 or 30
Yep.
big hits. So yeah, it's nice to hear the other stuff.
Yeah, it is.
It's just like anything, like Queen, like Bohemian Rhapsody on every channel. They pick the first one or two hits off of greatest hits now instead of the whole.
Yeah.
Well, they used to do those listening things where they invite people, and you would click, when they play a song, if it was familiar, and I think they would use those listening things to build their their song base, you know, and what they wanted to do was to have the most familiar songs so that people didn't turn the dial.
Yeah.
You know, and that,
Well, yeah, that's
unfortunately,
that's what the majority of stations are doing.
yeah,
and I
you
can,
know,
I can
it's
see,
kind
I
of
can
ruins
see
the
that
listening
point.
experience. I do too.
But there should be other stations that go
that's right.
above and beyond
Right.
those 1,400 songs.
Right. Because, you know, really you're getting the same thing everywhere then if
No.
you're doing that. So, yeah, oh well.
You know,
So what do you got planned the next 10 years here? Any kind of cool thing you're gonna pull out of the archive, or just continue on with the Michigan Music Legends or Michigan Music
I'm going to try to
history
stay
stuff?
alive for one thing.
All right,
That's right.
That's what I say.
we hear that a lot.
You know,
That's the
okay,
that's
no
the
problem.
that's
So,
the,
so life down in South Carolina is treating you pretty well?
Very nice.
Okay, good.
The average temperature right there, right now is 90.
It's a
But,
little warm.
you know, but when I came, you know, when we arrived back in Bay City last week, I think in the morning, 'cause I'm always up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I walk outside and, you know, have a cup of coffee, and it's like 65, and it's cold.
here.
To me, it's 65 is cold.
Well, you
So
know,
my
you
blood
get
is thinning out now.
right. Well, that's like anybody that moves down to Florida, even if they're a Michigander. You know, you get used to that temperature, and just
I
like
know.
holy mackerel, 60 degrees.
I remember
Everybody's got
putting
to
a
wear their
radio
coats
station on in Fort Myers back in 72, or no, 74. And that was strange. Got to get used to, you know, all the strange animals down there. Spiders this size. I said, oh, no, get me out. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
You're not a golfer, though, right? Or do you play?
I played on a league
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yes.
Well, because that's sort of like.
back in the early 70s, but I haven't played golf in years.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Nobody to golf with. Everybody's gone. You know, not going to play with the girlfriend, because if I beat her, then there are going to be problems. She'll eat steak. I'll eat toast.
You make it home though once a year and during the summer here in Michigan. That's
Yeah.
what you've been averaging.
Yeah, my two sisters are here. My sons are here. You know, my high school friends are here.
Yeah. Well, and the 4th is always a good time. You know, everybody is usually around.
And St. Stan's the week before. Which,
Yeah, St. Stan's.
Being a South
picnic.
End boy.
Yeah,
Remember how that polka?
yeah. No, I can't do that anymore. I probably would need oxygen.
Yeah, that's a Bay City tradition, just
But
like
you know,
the
but
fireworks.
the thing about coming back home for a week or two in the summer, it seems like you never have enough time to visit everybody.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
no matter how much you want it, you know, how much. Oh, let's go see this guy. Let's go see this family. Let's go to this restaurant, that restaurant. Let's go to Frankenmuth. Let's go to Bronner's. Sometimes you just never have time.
Yeah, well, there it is. At least it's never boring when you come back.
Oh no.
I remember 2 years ago when we contacted you. You ended up going up north on a whim,
Yeah.
and you couldn't make it. And you're like, "Look, I got things I got to do. I'll have to catch you next year." It was like, "Well, it is what it is, you know. You're here to get as much in as you can." So.
Yeah. Well, it's fun. Fun, you know. This guy I've known for a long time.
Yeah.
It's cool.
He tell me stories in the dark. When we'd go to Owasso with a flashlight and a shovel and find some records.
Find some records? Yeah. Yeah. How often did you visit that?
Yeah.
I know that story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no
that's a
printing
sad
place.
tale that Owasso
Yeah, the
really
American
didn't
rec-
embrace American record pressing. You know, such an historic pressing site. I mean, geez.
I keep wanting to go to the thrift shops there.
See what's
I just
fucking-
think they may have.
You'd be
Records.
surprised what you find at some of those thrift shops.
Yeah, they might.
Well, I do it every day, but
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. We'll have to make a special trip because I would love to go too. That would be
Yeah,
fun.
Wasso's really a nice town.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have
so-
cousins in Wasso.
Oh,
Yeah,
that'd be
but
great.
you go back to where that American record pressing was, and it was just like kind of back in the country, you know, on a dirt road. It just seemed, wow.
Well, some of those records are still in town, I think. I
Yeah.
hope.
Well, you know.
Well, you know, people that work there, I mean, they
Yeah.
employed at one time.
They're old now.
Well, yeah, but the records still might be in the family. I
Right.
think they had over 200 people working in there
Wow.
at one time. I mean, they were going 24/7 basically. They were major.
They pressed for
pressing.
a lot of record
Oh
labels.
yeah, way beyond Motown.
When did that end there?
Well, it ended with a fire,
Right, but
and under very suspicious circumstances.
yeah.
But Motown had moved out west, and that was their biggest customer. And they were still pressing some Motown, but not like when Motown was in Detroit. So
You could always tell by the lettering on that label if it was done in Owasso or not.
yeah, and they had that little mark on the
Matrix
what do you call it?
number.
Yeah, it was just like a little circle. You have to get a magnifying glass to see it. But it was on the whatever you call it, fade out on the record. That
It's the Matrix, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The Matrix, yeah.
Is that what it was called?
Yep.
So yeah,
Because I was wondering, because I still buy and sell records, and some of the they want to, what's the matrix number? And I'm going, geez, I can't
Can't
see
read
that.
that. What's the?
So I had to get out a
Owasso?
magnifying glass.
What's the Owasso Matrix? Is it?
well, I'm not sure what the number
Oh.
was, but they had a little circle
Okay.
with ARP, a
Okay.
tiny
Oh,
little circle.
ARP?
Yeah,
Interesting.
American
I've seen
Record
those.
Press. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Very
Never
cool.
thought about that.
Very,
very
very
tiny
cool.
though. It's nothing you pick
Well,
up
with
a
the
record.
magnifying glass,
Yeah,
you
you
can
have to
see
use
it.
a magnifying glass to see it.
And those were the ones those were the records the radio stations could play forever
Yeah.
without them scratching.
They
them.
lasted.
Because they weren't the styrene things where if you cue them too many times, you get that noise before, Uh, then stations started putting their music on a cartridge to avoid that problem.
Right.
Well, Rick, thank you for making the trek out here to hang with us. Give us a few
Yeah, I'm
moments
just
of your
across the
Michigan
street
trip.
right now.
It's perfect how this works out. Perfect. And no, we can't thank you enough for all your music history that you continue to give it to us and present it to us. And we get to tap in and share a name a little bit with you. And but just to hear your stories alone, what we're grateful for.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming, old friend. That's been great.
Sir. I still get calls. What's the name of this song? Here's the lyrics. What's the name of this song? What do I look like here? Google?
Mr. Soundhound.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
Yeah. The radio was fun days, but radio has changed.
Yeah.
Everything else has changed, and so, radio goes with it.
Things moving on. Well, we hope to have you back, Rick. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks
Sure.
again, Rick.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Okay.
The MMHP is hosted on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and our own Libsyn podcast site. You can also search MMHP 989 on Facebook for up-to-the-minute information, as well as both Dr. J and Sir Fred's album picks of the week, posted every weekend. Don't forget to look for Mr. Mike's local music live series, posted frequently on MMHP's Facebook hub, as well as Scott's Mid-Mitten 15 from Harvest Canteen, featuring one-on-one interviews with Michigan music artists. You can connect with Scott on the web at scottbakermusic.com, Dr. J at michiganrockandrolllegends.com, Sir Fred at fredrife.com, Mr. Mike at YouTube at MrBT1. That's MRBTEE and the number 1. Brought to you by Michigan Rock and Roll Legends, located both inside the Bay County Historical Museum on Washington Avenue, as well as Scotty's Sandbar on Evergreen Drive at the Bay City Middle Grounds.
On behalf of our hosts, Dr. J, Sir Fred, Mr. Mike, and myself, this podcast wouldn't have been here without the voice of the MMHP, Mr. Eddie Switek, the generosity of the Bay County Historical Museum, which hosts the Rock and Roll Legends Hall of Fame, as well as this podcast, Mr.